There's a precise moment when illusion shatters, when the careful architecture of lies collapses under its own weight. For me, it came at 4:17 a.m. on a Tuesday, announced by the soft ping of a banking alert on my phone. $4 million, gone. 18 years of marriage, vanished. They say wealth insulates you from life's crueler truths. They're wrong. Money simply allows betrayal to happen on a grander scale, with higher stakes and deeper falls. As I stood in our marble-floored kitchen, staring at the zeros where our life savings had been, I felt something unexpected beneath the shock and rage liberation. My father once told me, when a snake finally strikes after years of waiting, there's a strange relief in no longer having to watch for it. I didn't understand then, but as dawn broke over our perfectly manicured estate, the home he would soon share with his 29-year-old assistant, I finally did. Some endings are really beginnings disguised as catastrophes. This is mine. The charity gala at the Metropolitan Museum of Art sparkled with New York's elite, a sea of designer gowns and meticulously tailored tuxedos against the backdrop of the Temple of Dender. Olivia Harrington Richardson moved with practiced grace through the crowd, champagne flute in hand, her navy Valentino dress chosen specifically to blend in rather than stand out. At 46, she had mastered the art of elegant invisibility, the perfect complement to her husband's commanding presence. "There's Susan Blackwell," whispered Caroline, one of the three women accompanying Olivia. "Did you hear her youngest finally went to rehab 3 times the charm? Supposedly?" Olivia nodded politely, but her attention had drifted across the room to where Maxwell Richardson, her husband of 18 years, stood in deep conversation with his executive assistant. Even from a distance, Olivia could read the familiar signs: Maxwell's slightly inclined posture, the way his hand occasionally brushed against the young woman's elbow, the intimate space between them that seemed to exclude the rest of the room. Rachel Winters was 31, with the kind of effortless beauty that came from good genetics and better dermatologists. Tonight she wore a form-fitting red dress that whispered of ambition and something more. Olivia Earth to Olivia. Margaret, the oldest of their small group at 62, followed her gaze. "Ah, I see Max brought his protege again." "Executive assistant," Olivia corrected automatically, the words hollow in her mouth. "Is that what they're calling it these days?" Margaret raised an eyebrow. "Honey, I've been around the block enough times to recognize the pattern. 3 marriages taught me something. Max values loyalty in his team," Olivia said, the practiced response rolling off her tongue. "I'm sure he does," Margaret replied, her tone gentle but knowing. "Just like my second husband valued his 28-year-old personal trainer for her dedication to fitness." Before Olivia could respond, Maxwell looked up, catching her gaze across the room. He smiled, that perfect, practiced smile that had graced the cover of Wealth Management Quarterly last spring, and whispered something to Rachel before making his way toward the bar. Rachel lingered where she stood, her eyes following Maxwell with an intensity that sent a chill through Olivia. Then, noticing Olivia's attention, the younger woman's expression shifted to something carefully neutral before she turned away. "I need to use the ladies' room," Olivia murmured to her friends, setting her barely touched champagne on a passing server's tray, instead of heading toward the restrooms. However, she found herself moving with quiet determination toward the Roman sculpture gallery where Maxwell and Rachel had disappeared. The click of her heels on marble echoed in the emptier space as she navigated past ancient busts and friezes. A low murmur of voices drew her toward a partially concealed alcove behind a massive statue of Neptune. She slowed her steps, suddenly conscious of her racing heart. "Can't keep doing this," Rachel's voice, hushed but urgent. "The timeline has moved up. They're asking questions about the Cayman transfers." "Let them ask." Maxwell's tone carried that familiar dismissive confidence. "The structure is solid. Everything will proceed as planned." "And what about—" "She's not a concern. In 3 weeks, it'll be handled. Trust me." A chill ran through Olivia. Something in Maxwell's voice, the cold efficiency with which he referenced her. Because who else could she be struck a chord of fear she hadn't felt in years? "And us?" Rachel asked, her voice softening. "Bali first, then wherever you want. The sound of a kiss. You deserve the world, and I'm going to give it to you." Olivia backed away silently, her mind racing. Perhaps she'd misunderstood. Perhaps this was about some business matter, some client or colleague. Perhaps. But deep down, in the place where truth resided beneath layers of practiced denial, Olivia knew. She'd known for months, perhaps years, recognizing the signs but choosing to look away, just as she'd done when Maxwell's late nights at the office multiplied, when his business trips extended without explanation, when the distance between them in their king-sized bed became a metaphorical ocean. She rejoined her friends with a manufactured smile, making it through the remainder of the evening on autopilot, accepting air kisses and making appropriate small talk. Maxwell found her just as they were preparing to leave, placing his hand possessively at the small of her back. "Ready to go, darling?" he asked, his breath carrying the faint scent of scotch. "I've called for the car. Actually, I promised Caroline I'd help with final details for the Children's Hospital fundraiser," Olivia replied, the lie coming easily. "Her car service can drop me home." Maxwell's expression flickered surprise, then quick calculation. "At this hour, surely that can wait until tomorrow." "These things are always last minute," she said, maintaining eye contact, a small act of defiance. "Don't wait up." Something in her tone must have registered, because his eyes narrowed slightly before his social mask slipped back into place. "Of course, don't be too late." He kissed her cheek, a gesture for the benefit of onlookers more than affection. "I have an early breakfast meeting with the Singapore investors." Carolyn played along seamlessly, linking arms with Olivia as they exited the museum. Only when they were safely in the back of the town car did she turn to Olivia with concern. "Want to tell me what that was really about?" Olivia leaned back against the leather seat, suddenly exhausted. "Just needed some space. Things haven't been great at home lately." Caroline, divorced twice and now happily single at 54, squeezed her hand. "My guest apartment is always available if you need a place to clear your head. No questions asked." "I appreciate that." Olivia stared out at the passing city lights. "But I'm fine, really. Fine." The word women their age used when they were anything but. The Richardson estate in Greenwich, Connecticut sat on 3 manicured acres, a colonial revival masterpiece that had been featured in Architectural Digest after their extensive renovation 5 years earlier. As the car service pulled through the wrought iron gates, Olivia noticed something amiss. The security lights on the east side of the property were off. "Could you wait a moment?" she asked the driver as they reached the circular driveway. "I think I see something unusual." "Of course, ma'am." Olivia exited the car, her heels crunching on the gravel as she moved toward the side entrance. The garden path lights were also dark, unusual since Maxwell was obsessive about security protocols. As she rounded the corner, she caught a flicker of movement near the pool house, a shadow quickly disappearing behind the structure. Her pulse quickened. She retreated to the car, instructing the driver to pull up directly to the main entrance where the security lighting remained on. Once inside, she quickly punched in the alarm code and locked the door behind her. "Maxwell," she called, her voice echoing in the marble foyer. No response. The house felt different somehow, the silence too complete, as if holding its breath. Olivia slipped off her heels, moving quietly across the polished floors toward Maxwell's study. The door was ajar, unusual for a man who insisted on privacy for his work. Inside, the desk drawers stood open, papers scattered across the surface. Maxwell's laptop was missing, as was the small Rodin bronze that normally sat on the credenza. A noise from upstairs startled her, the soft thud of a closing door. Heart pounding. Olivia grabbed the heavy crystal paperweight from the desk and moved to the hallway, calculating the distance to the front door versus the landline in the kitchen. Before she could decide, headlights swept across the driveway. Through the window, she recognized Maxwell's Bentley pulling up to the entrance. She watched as he emerged, straightening his bow tie before heading toward the door. Olivia quickly returned the paperweight to the desk and moved to intercept him in the foyer. "You're home early," he remarked, surprise evident in his voice. "The planning session wrapped up quickly," she replied, studying his face. "Did you come home and go out again? I thought I heard someone upstairs." Maxwell's expression remained neutral. "I've been at the gala until now. Perhaps the housekeeper came back for something. Maria left for her sister's wedding in Miami yesterday. Remember?" "Ah, right." He loosened his tie, moving past her toward the stairs. "Must have been the house settling. These old places make all sorts of noises." The house was barely 20 years old, but Olivia let the comment pass. "Your study door was open. It looked like someone went through your desk." Maxwell paused on the stairs, turning back to her with a flash of something concerned anger before his features smoothed. "I was in a rush this morning. Left things a bit messy. I'll sort it tomorrow." He continued up the stairs, coming to bed. "In a bit. I need to check my emails first." Once Maxwell disappeared into their bedroom, Olivia returned to the study, examining the room more carefully. The disorder seemed deliberate rather than rushed, files removed from specific folders, the contents of only certain drawers disturbed. On the carpet near the bookcase, she noticed a small object, a cufflink, not one of Maxwell's. She pocketed it without thinking. then made her way to the kitchen. Sleep proved elusive that night. Beside her, Maxwell's breathing remained too measured, too controlled for genuine sleep. They lay like strangers, separated by inches that might as well have been miles, both pretending to rest while their minds raced with unspoken thoughts. Morning arrived with deceptive normalcy, sunlight streaming through the bedroom windows, the distant sound of the gardener's equipment, the familiar scent of coffee brewing downstairs. Maxwell was already gone, his side of the bed cold, his absence explained by a note on the nightstand. Early meeting, back late tonight. Olivia showered and dressed with care, selecting a casual but elegant ensemble for her scheduled lunch with the museum board. As she reached for her purse, her phone chimed with a text notification. Unknown number, urgent, unusual activity detected on your accounts. Please call Whitney Private Banking immediately at 212-555-8970. Frowning, Olivia dialed the number, navigating through the automated system until she reached a customer service representative. Mrs. Richardson, thank you for calling. We've been trying to reach you regarding some significant withdrawals from your joint accounts over the past 24 hours. Withdrawals. Olivia moved to her laptop, logging into their online banking portal. What kind of withdrawals? Multiple transfers totaling approximately $4.7 million. Given the unusual nature and amount, our security system flagged them for review. The screen loaded, displaying their accounts, where there should have been millions. Olivia saw only minimal balances, $1.246 in their joint checking, a few thousand in her personal account. Their investment portfolio, carefully built over 2 decades, showed zero. This must be a mistake, Olivia said, her voice steady despite the panic rising in her chest. My husband is a financial advisor. He would never. The transfers were authorized using the proper credentials and security protocols. Mrs. Richardson, they went to multiple offshore accounts early this morning, around 4 a.m. Can you reverse them? I'm afraid once the funds have been transferred offshore, it becomes much more complicated. We'll need to file reports with the Financial Crimes Unit. And where did the money go exactly? Olivia interrupted, grabbing a pen. I don't have complete information, but the primary receiving accounts appear to be in the Cayman Islands and Singapore. If you didn't authorize these transfers, we strongly recommend filing a police report immediately. After ending the call, Olivia sat motionless, the implications washing over her in waves. The Cayman Islands. Exactly what Rachel had mentioned last night. With trembling fingers, she dialed Maxwell's cell phone. It went straight to voicemail. She tried his office next. Excelsior Capital. How may I direct your call? The receptionist answered. Maxwell Richardson. Please, this is his wife. A pause. I'm sorry, Mrs. Richardson, but Mr. Richardson isn't available. It's an emergency. Please put me through to his office. Another pause. Longer this time. Mrs. Richardson, Mr. Richardson hasn't been in the office this week. Would you like to speak with Mr. Donaldson instead? Olivia's grip tightened on the phone. What do you mean he hasn't been in? He's had meetings every day. The receptionist's voice lowered. I'm really not supposed to? Perhaps you should speak with HR. Connect me, now. Olivia's tone left no room for refusal. Minutes later, she learned that Maxwell had officially taken a leave of absence the previous Friday, nearly a week ago, citing personal reasons. He had cleared his calendar, reassigned his clients to colleagues, and, according to the uncomfortable HR director, removed his personal items from his office over the weekend, all while maintaining the charade of going to work each day. Olivia ended the call, her mind racing. She needed to see for herself. Grabbing her purse and car keys, she headed for the garage, only to discover Maxwell's Bentley was gone. Of course he'd driven it this morning for his early meeting. She took her own Mercedes instead, navigating through mid-morning traffic toward Manhattan, trying to make sense of the unraveling situation. By the time she pulled into the underground parking garage of Excelsior Capital's Midtown office tower, her shock had crystallized into something harder, more focused. The security guard at the desk recognized her immediately. Mrs. Richardson, we weren't expecting you today. I need to see my husband's office. Of course. Let me just call up. No need, she interrupted, already moving toward the elevator bank. I know the way. The executive floor was eerily quiet as Olivia made her way down the carpeted hallway toward Maxwell's corner office. The nameplate still bore his name, but when she tried the door, it was locked. Through the glass partition, she could see the space was indeed cleared out. No personal photos, no antique world globe, no framed diplomas on the wall. Mrs. Richardson. She turned to find Richard Donaldson, Maxwell's longtime colleague, regarding her with obvious discomfort. Richard, where is my husband? He glanced around, then gestured toward a nearby conference room. Perhaps we should speak privately. Once the door closed behind them, Richard's professional demeanor faltered. Olivia, I'm sorry, but I haven't spoken with Max since last Friday. He emailed the executive team about taking personal leave, effective immediately. We assumed it was something you both had planned. Clearly not, she replied coldly. And the clients he's been supposedly meeting with all week. Richard shifted uncomfortably. Reassigned. The Singapore group is working with me now. I see. Olivia maintained her composure through sheer force of will. And Rachel Winters also hasn't been in. She submitted her resignation on Monday. The pieces were falling into place with devastating clarity. Olivia stood, smoothing her skirt with steady hands. Thank you for your honesty, Richard. If Maxwell contacts anyone here, I'd appreciate knowing immediately. Of course, he hesitated. Olivia, if there's anything I can do? You've done enough, she said, moving toward the door. More than Max's other friends who've been lying to my face for who knows how long. Richard had the grace to look ashamed. It wasn't my place to— No, it wasn't, she agreed, her hand on the doorknob. But someone should have had the decency. She made it to the elevator before the trembling started, pressing the button for the parking garage with unsteady fingers. As the doors closed, she caught her reflection in the polished metal, a woman she barely recognized, pale with shock but standing straight, her mother's diamond earrings catching the light. The parking garage was dimly lit and nearly empty when she emerged from the elevator. Olivia moved quickly toward her car, keys already in hand, when the sound of familiar voices stopped her cold. Getting cold feet now is idiotic. Everything's in motion. Maxwell, coming from somewhere near the executive parking section around the corner. You said she wouldn't notice for days. The bank called her this morning. Rachel's voice, tight with stress. A minor complication. By the time she figures anything out, will be— Olivia stepped around the concrete pillar, bringing them into view. Maxwell and Rachel stood beside the Bentley, luggage visible in the open trunk. Both froze at the sight of her. Figures what out, Maxwell? Olivia asked, her voice remarkably steady. That you emptied our accounts, that you've been planning this for weeks, or that you're running away with your assistant like some middle-aged cliché. Maxwell recovered first, his expression shifting from shock to calculated calm. Olivia, this isn't how I wanted to have this conversation. Clearly, she replied, moving closer. You preferred the coward's approach. Clean out the bank accounts at 4 a.m. and disappear. It's not that simple, he said, taking a step toward her. If you just let me explain. I called the bank, Maxwell. I know about the transfers. I know about your leave of absence. I know everything. A flash of something fear crossed his features before his mask of control returned. You don't know anything. He moved suddenly, grabbing her arm. Give me your phone. Let go of me. Olivia jerked away, but his grip tightened painfully. Your phone, Olivia, now, before you do something stupid like call the police. Rachel stood frozen by the car, her expression shifting between fear and determination. Max, don't— Stay out of this, he snapped, reaching for Olivia's purse with his free hand. Years of self-defense training with her father resurfaced in an instant. Olivia drove her knee upward, catching Maxwell in the groin with enough force to double him over. As his grip loosened, she twisted away, backing toward the exit. You bitch, he gasped, straightening with effort. You have no idea what you're doing. I know exactly what I'm doing, Olivia replied, continuing to put distance between them. I'm leaving my thief of a husband. Maxwell lunged toward her again, but Olivia was already running, her practical heels allowing her to move quickly between parked cars. Behind her, she heard Maxwell's voice, tight with fury. Get the car, don't let her leave the garage. The Bentley's engine roared to life as Olivia raced toward her Mercedes, fumbling with the key fob. She slid into the driver's seat just as the Bentley's headlights appeared at the end of the row. Accelerating toward her, her hands shook as she started the engine, throwing the car into reverse and backing out with a screech of tires. The Bentley swerved to block her exit, but Olivia cut sharply to the right, navigating through a narrow gap between support columns. For several terrifying minutes, they played a dangerous game of cat and mouse through the garage levels. The Bentley's superior engine giving Maxwell an advantage, Olivia countered with her more intimate knowledge of the garage layout. She'd parked here weekly for charity board meetings, while Maxwell usually had his car valeted. Finally spotting an opening, Olivia accelerated up the exit ramp, cutting off a delivery truck to emerge onto 52nd Street. The Bentley followed seconds later, but the midday traffic provided cover as Olivia made a sharp right, then an immediate left, losing them in the grid of Manhattan's streets. Her heart pounded as she navigated toward the FDR Drive, heading north, Only when she was safely on the highway did she reach for her phone, intending to call the police. Before she could dial, a text message appeared on the screen. Maxwell, I deserve happiness. You never understood that. Lawyer will contact you with papers. Don't make this uglier than it needs to be. Attached was a document divorce papers, already prepared, dated 3 weeks earlier. The terms were breathtakingly one-sided. Olivia would receive a generous settlement of $250,000 and retain her personal jewelry, while Maxwell would keep the house, all investment accounts, and his business interests. A bitter laugh escaped her. He'd planned to leave her with practically nothing, just a pittance from their joint assets worth tens of millions, and now he'd taken even that, emptying the accounts completely. Another text followed Maxwell. Be smart about this. Olivia, sign the papers, walk away, and we both move on with our lives. Fight me, and you'll regret it. I know people you don't want to meet. The threat sent a chill through her. In 18 years of marriage, she'd never felt physically afraid of Maxwell. Emotionally manipulated, yes. Gradually diminished as a person, certainly, but never threatened. This was new territory, revealing a side of him she'd never glimpsed, or perhaps never allowed herself to see. The house was silent when Olivia returned, having circled for nearly an hour to ensure she wasn't followed. She moved through the rooms methodically, assessing what remained and what was missing. Maxwell's absence was evident in subtle ways: favorite books gone from shelves, the safe in his closet standing open and empty. The vintage watch collection vanished from its display case. In their bedroom, she discovered her jewelry box had been opened, but her most valuable pieces remained untouched, not from sentimentality. She was certain, but because the Tiffany diamonds and Cartier pieces were too recognizable, too easily traced if pawned or sold. The wall safe behind the Monet in the sitting room had been cleared of cash and documents, including their passports and birth certificates. In Maxwell's study, the antique desk where he often worked on weekends had been systematically emptied of anything important. Reaching for the landline, Olivia dialed her sister's number from memory. Diane Harrington. It's me. Olivia's voice cracked slightly, the events of the day finally catching up to her. Liv, what's wrong? You sound terrible. Maxwell's gone. He's taken everything, emptied the accounts, disappeared with his assistant. A beat of silence. That son of a bitch. I'm coming over. Don't move. Diane arrived 45 minutes later, her hospital ID still clipped to her white coat, evidence she'd left work mid-shift. At 51, she was the more practical of the Harrington sisters, a pediatric surgeon with an analytical mind and zero tolerance for nonsense. Tell me everything, she instructed, setting her bag down on the kitchen counter. Olivia recounted the day's events while Diane listened without interruption, her expression growing progressively darker. We need to call the police, she said when Olivia finished. What he's done is theft, plain and simple. It's our joint accounts, Olivia pointed out. Legally, he had every right to access them. Then we need a lawyer, a shark. Diane pulled out her phone. Patricia Lynn handled my divorce from David. She's ruthless and specializes in high net worth cases. Maxwell's always been the one to handle lawyers, financial matters. Olivia trailed off, realizing how dependent she'd become. Diane's expression softened. Hey, you're not alone in this. Dad didn't raise us to be helpless. Remember? The mention of their father brought a fresh wave of emotion. Howard Harrington had been gone for 4 years, but his influence remained strong, a self-made man who'd built a commercial real estate empire from nothing, raising his daughters to be self-sufficient, even as they enjoyed the privileges of wealth. Dad never liked Maxwell, Olivia said quietly. Said he had fortune hunter written all over him. Dad was right about a lot of things. Diane squeezed her hand. And he made sure we were both protected. Remember the trusts, the separate assets. The trust is managed by Maxwell's firm. Olivia realized with dawning horror. He's had access to those statements for years. Diane was already dialing another number. Uncle Jack, it's Diane. We've got a situation with Olivia. How quickly can you get to Greenwich? Jack Harrington arrived as darkness fell, his weathered face grim as he embraced his niece. At 55, he carried himself with the alert readiness of his former profession, 20 years with the NYPD, before joining Howard's business as head of security. The trust is safe, he assured them after hearing the details. Howard was too smart to leave everything under one roof. Maxwell's firm handles only the public-facing portion, about 20% of the actual assets. The rest is managed privately through Fielding and Sons in Boston, with Nathan Edwards as trustee. Relief washed through Olivia. Nathan? Dad's old army buddy Jack nodded. The same. Howard never trusted Maxwell. Set up a firewall around the family assets years ago. That's why I'm here, actually. Nathan's been trying to reach you since this morning. When he couldn't get through on your cell, he called me. My phone's been, Olivia checked the device, finding it dead. Battery's gone. What did Nathan want? Wouldn't say exactly, just that it was urgent and related to Howard's contingency plans. Jack's expression was somber. Liv, your father anticipated something like this. He left specific instructions with Nathan about what to do if Maxwell ever showed his true colors. Before Olivia could process this information, the doorbell rang. Jack moved immediately to the security panel, checking the camera feed. Middle-aged man, suit, carrying a briefcase. Looks official. Could be Maxwell's lawyer with those divorce papers, Diane suggested. Let him wait, Jack advised. But Olivia was already moving toward the door. No, I want to hear what they're offering. Know your enemy, right. Isn't that what Dad always said? The man at the door was tall and distinguished, with silver hair and wire-rimmed glasses. He straightened as Olivia opened the door, his expression grave. Mrs. Richardson, I'm Nathan Edwards, your father's attorney. He extended his hand. I believe we met at Howard's funeral, though it was a difficult day for everyone. Olivia's surprise must have shown on her face because he added gently, I understand this is unexpected. May I come in? There are matters of significant importance we need to discuss. She led him to the formal living room where Diane and Jack were waiting. After introductions, Nathan placed his briefcase on the coffee table, regarding Olivia with a mixture of sympathy and determination. I've been monitoring your financial accounts, Mrs. Richardson. Or rather, a system your father put in place has been monitoring them. This morning at 4:17 a.m., that system detected unusual activity, multiple large withdrawals and transfers that triggered an alert to my office. You've been watching our accounts. How is that even legal? Olivia asked, taken aback. With your consent, though you may not recall, after your father's passing, you signed several documents, including one authorizing continued financial monitoring as a condition of the trust. Howard was concerned about your husband's influence and potential actions. Dad knew this would happen, Olivia said slowly, the realization dawning. He anticipated Maxwell would do something like this. Nathan nodded gravely. Howard hoped he was wrong, but he prepared as if he was right. That was his way. He opened his briefcase, removing a thick folder embossed with his law firm's logo. Your father established what he called the snake insurance policy, a contingency trust that would activate only if Maxwell betrayed you in a specific and measurable way. And emptying their accounts qualifies, Jack interjected. Precisely. Nathan turned to a tabbed section of the document. When the system flagged the unusual activity yesterday, I personally reviewed the transactions. Your husband withdrew approximately $4.7 million across various accounts, leaving nominal balances to avoid immediate overdraft notifications. He also recently took out a home equity line of credit against his property for an additional $1.2 million. That's impossible, Olivia protested. I would have had to sign for that. Nathan's expression darkened. I'm afraid you'll find your signature on those documents. Whether it's authentic or forged will be a matter for investigation. Olivia felt sick. Just how long had Maxwell been planning this? How many documents had he falsified in her name? What matters now? Nathan continued. Is that your father's contingency plan has activated? As of 9:00 a.m. this morning, the Olivia Harrington Contingency Trust has been converted from a dormant entity to an active one. The assets are being transferred to accounts in your name, only as we speak. What assets exactly are we talking about? Olivia asked, her voice barely audible. Nathan removed a single sheet of paper and placed it on the table between them. Olivia glanced down and felt the room spin slightly. $485 million. That can't be right, she whispered. Your father made some particularly astute investments in the years before his passing. The trust has been actively managed since then, and the portfolio has performed exceptionally well. Nathan's professional demeanor softened. Howard wanted to ensure that if his concerns about Maxwell ever proved valid, you wouldn't just be protected, you would be empowered. Diane let out a low whistle. Leave it to Dad to have the last laugh. There's more, Nathan said. The beach property in the Hamptons that Maxwell always insisted was a poor investment. Howard repurchased it from Jack secretly and placed it in this trust. The art collection your mother started that Maxwell convinced you to keep in storage. It's been properly maintained and is legally yours alone. Olivia stood abruptly, moving to the window that overlooked the garden she designed when they first bought the house. The roses were in their second bloom of the season, the fountain bubbling peacefully. The garden had always been hers. Maxwell had no interest beyond how it increased their property value. Even your grandmother's sapphire ring set that disappeared during that convenient home burglary 5 years ago? Nathan continued. Howard had already secured it in a safe deposit box. He suspected the timing of that break-in was too convenient. Olivia turned back, a sudden realization dawning. The robbery happened right after Maxwell's first major investment loss, the one he said was due to market volatility. Nathan nodded slowly. Your father had his suspicions about that as well. A lifetime of doubts dismissed and intuitions ignored came rushing back. How many red flags had she explained away over the years? How many of Maxwell's questionable actions had she rationalized to preserve the perfect image of their marriage? I need a moment, she said, sinking back onto the sofa. Of course. Nathan gathered his papers neatly. There's no rush. The accounts are being set up as we speak, but the funds won't be fully accessible until tomorrow morning. I've taken the liberty of arranging an immediate transfer of $250,000 to your personal account for any pressing needs. Olivia almost laughed at the absurdity. Yesterday, she had been wondering how they would manage the upcoming property tax bill. Today, she was being casually offered $250,000 as pocket change. What happens next? She asked, rubbing her temples where a headache was forming. That's entirely up to you, Mrs. Richardson. My role is to execute your father's wishes and ensure the smooth transition of these assets. How you proceed legally against Maxwell, personally. With your new circumstances, those decisions are yours to make. After Nathan left, promising to return tomorrow with additional paperwork, Olivia wandered through the house that suddenly felt both familiar and foreign. Every inch reflected choices Maxwell had made that she had supported, or rather, choices she had surrendered to his superior judgment. You can't stay here tonight, Diane said firmly. If Maxwell realizes what's happening, there's no telling what he might do. She's right, Jack agreed. Pack what you need. You'll stay at my place until we secure something more permanent. Olivia nodded, moving toward the stairs, then paused. Wait, I need to check something first. She returned to Maxwell's study, examining the antique desk more carefully. The hidden compartment in the bottom drawer where he kept their estate planning documents had been emptied, but she noticed something odd about the ornate carving on the side panel. Pressing it revealed another secret drawer, so well concealed she'd never noticed it before. Inside lay a single USB drive labeled Insurance and a sealed envelope addressed to someone named Victor Vitelli. Jack, she called, holding up the items. You need to see this? Her uncle examined the USB drive carefully. We shouldn't open this here. Could be anything financial records, personal data, or evidence, Diane suggested, looking over his shoulder. Who's Victor Vitelli? Jack's expression turned grim. If it's who I think it is, your husband's in deeper trouble than just divorce proceedings. The Vitelli family is old-school organized crime, laundering money through legitimate businesses for decades. Olivia sank into the desk chair, the implications washing over her. Are you saying Maxwell is involved with the mob? I'm saying we need to get you somewhere safe while we figure this out. Jack pocketed the USB drive. Pack a bag, essentials only. We leave in 10 minutes. Jack's cabin in the Adirondacks was rustic but secure, situated on 20 wooded acres with a clear view of the approaching road. By the time they arrived, it was well past midnight, the journey made longer by a circuitous route to ensure they weren't followed. Howard and I use this place for hunting, Jack explained as he showed Olivia to the spare bedroom. But these days it's more of a retreat. Secure satellite internet, generator backup, and no one knows about it except family. Too exhausted for further conversation, Olivia fell into a dreamless sleep, waking only when sunlight streamed through the cabin windows. She found Diane and Jack in the kitchen, huddled over Jack's laptop. Morning, Sleeping Beauty, Diane said, pushing a mug of coffee toward her. Feel any better? Like I've been hit by a truck, Olivia admitted, taking the offered coffee. But clearer. What are you looking at? Jack turned the laptop so she could see the screen. Your husband's been busy. The USB drive contained financial records transfers, account numbers, correspondence. He's been moving money through a complex network of shell companies for years. Is it illegal? Olivia asked, scanning the spreadsheets displayed. Some of it, definitely. The forged documents for the home equity loan, the fraudulent investment accounts. But that's just the surface. Jack pointed to a particular transaction record. These patterns are consistent with money laundering. Maxwell has been cleaning cash for some very dangerous people, including the Vitelli family. How long? Olivia's voice was barely audible. Based on these records, at least 5 years, maybe longer. 5 years. Around the time of Maxwell's first investment loss, the convenient burglary, and his sudden insistence that they upgrade their lifestyle with a larger house in Greenwich and the vacation property in Aspen. There's something else, Diane said gently. Those divorce papers he prepared, they include a clause where you take responsibility for jointly filed tax returns going back 7 years, which means if any financial crimes were discovered, you'd share the liability, Jack added. The room seemed to tilt slightly as the full picture came into focus. Maxwell hadn't just been planning to leave her, he'd been setting her up as a potential fall person if his illegal activities were ever discovered. What do we do now? Olivia asked, gripping her coffee mug to steady herself. First, we secure your financial independence, Jack said firmly. Nathan is handling that. Second, we document everything: the forged signatures, the unauthorized withdrawals, evidence of Maxwell's criminal activities. And third, Diane added, we find you the best divorce attorney in New York, someone who can not only protect you, but potentially help with the criminal aspects as well. Olivia nodded slowly, her shock gradually giving way to resolve. I want Patricia Lynn, the lawyer you mentioned yesterday. Already called her, Diane confirmed. She's meeting us tomorrow morning at her office, 9 a.m. Jack closed the laptop. In the meantime, we stay here where it's safe. Maxwell doesn't know about this place, and we need to keep it that way until we understand exactly what we're dealing with. As if on cue, Olivia's phone, newly charged, chimed with an incoming text. Maxwell again. Maxwell. Heard you've been asking questions at the office. Stop. The papers are being delivered to your sister's house tomorrow. Sign them. Take the settlement, and this ends cleanly. Otherwise, people get hurt. He's threatening me now, Olivia said, showing them the message. Jack's expression hardened. That settles it. You're not leaving this cabin until we have a proper security plan in place. I'm not hiding from him, Olivia protested. That's what he expects for me to be: scared, compliant, easy to manipulate. This isn't about pride, Liv, Diane argued. If Maxwell is involved with people like the Vitellis, the threat is real. I know. Olivia set down her mug with determination. Which is exactly why I can't let him intimidate me. Dad didn't raise us to back down from bullies. Jack studied her for a long moment, then nodded reluctantly. Howard would say the same thing. But we do this smart. No unnecessary risks. Agreed, Olivia said. So what's our next move? We gather intelligence. Jack decided. Find out exactly what Maxwell's up to, where he's hiding, who he's working with. I've got contacts who can help with surveillance, but it'll take time. Time we may not have, Diane pointed out. If he's threatening Olivia directly, he's getting desperate. Olivia thought for a moment. Rachel? His assistant, Jack, raised an eyebrow. She was with him in the parking garage. She knows his plans, probably has access to his current location. Olivia reached for her phone. And I'm betting she has no idea how deep the criminal connections go. How would you even contact her? Diane asked skeptically. Through Instagram, Olivia replied, already opening the app. Rachel's an avid poster, always documenting her perfect life. Sure enough, Rachel's profile had been updated just hours earlier, a photo of a champagne flute against a backdrop of Manhattan's skyline, captioned, New beginnings deserve skyline views. Blessed our dream home. Hudson Yards, Jack identified immediately. That's the view from the west-facing units, probably one of the luxury towers. Olivia enlarged the image, her designer's eye immediately recognizing the distinctive railings and stonework of a specific development. The Edison at Hudson Yards. Units there start at $8 million. Paid for with your money, Diane added grimly. And possibly dirty money from the Vitellis, Jack noted. This is getting more complicated by the minute. Olivia stared at the image, an idea forming. Maybe not. If we know where they are, we have leverage, and I know exactly how to use it. Patricia Lynn's corner office on the 47th floor of a sleek midtown tower offered panoramic views of Central Park, a subtle reminder of the power she wielded in New York's divorce landscape. At 62, she had built a reputation as the attorney high-net-worth women called when marriages to powerful men imploded. Maxwell Richardson, she said, reviewing the documents spread across her conference table. Excelsior Capital. Excellent reputation in financial circles. No previous divorces, no known children outside the marriage. She looked up at Olivia. On paper, he's the perfect husband. Papers can be forged, Olivia replied evenly. As I've recently discovered, Patricia smiled thinly. Indeed they can, and often are. She tapped a particular document, the home equity loan application, with Olivia's supposed signature. This is amateur work, frankly. A decent forensic expert will confirm it's a forgery in minutes. Jack placed the USB drive on the table. There's more than just forgery involved. Maxwell has been moving money through shell companies, potentially laundering funds for organized crime. Patricia's eyebrows rose slightly, the only indication of surprise from the otherwise composed attorney. That changes our approach considerably. She turned to Olivia. How much of this were you aware of during the marriage? None, Olivia said firmly. Maxwell handled all financial matters. I focused on our social obligations, charitable work, maintaining our homes. The classic division of labor in high net worth marriages, Patricia noted without judgment. And your name is on joint tax returns for how many years? All of them, 18 years. Patricia made a note. We'll need to file for innocent spouse relief with the IRS immediately. The timeline works in our favor. Your discovery of his criminal activities coincides with his abandonment and theft, demonstrating you had no knowledge or participation. What about the divorce itself? Diane asked. Maxwell's already prepared papers that would leave Olivia with almost nothing. Those are worthless. Patricia dismissed with a wave. New York is an equitable distribution state. Courts take a particularly dim view of what we call dissipation of marital assets, spending marital funds on extramarital affairs, or making large financial moves without spousal consent. So, what's our strategy? Olivia asked. Aggressive and immediate, Patricia replied, already typing notes into her tablet. We file emergency motions today, one to freeze any remaining joint assets, another for expedited financial disclosure, and a third for a temporary restraining order preventing him from selling, transferring, or encumbering any property acquired during your marriage. He'll fight it, Jack warned. Let him try. Patricia's smile was predatory. Courts don't look kindly on husbands who empty joint accounts and run off with their assistants. Add potential criminal activity to the mix, and Maxwell Richardson will find himself in a very uncomfortable position. What about the Vitelli connection? Olivia asked. Should we bring that to the authorities? Patricia exchanged glances with Jack before responding. We need to tread carefully there. If Maxwell is indeed laundering money for organized crime, the implications go beyond your divorce. There could be genuine danger. I've arranged for private security, Jack interjected. Former colleagues from my NYPD days. They'll keep watch on Olivia until we better understand the scope of the threat. Patricia nodded approvingly. Good. In the meantime, Mrs. Richardson, have you given thought to where you'll be staying? I strongly advise against returning to Greenwich. I have options, Olivia assured her. Multiple properties through my father's trust, all in secure locations. Excellent. Patricia gathered the documents efficiently. My team will file these motions by close of business today. We should have preliminary court dates within the week. As they prepared to leave, Patricia held Olivia back for a moment. One more thing. Mrs. Richardson, I noticed from social media that your husband and Ms. Winters appear to be settling into their new home at the Edison. They've already made it Instagram official, Olivia confirmed wryly. Interesting timing for a housewarming, given the circumstances. Patricia's eyes gleamed with strategic calculation. When exactly are they planning to celebrate their new abode? The Edison at Hudson Yards rose 70 stories above Manhattan's west side, its glass facade reflecting the afternoon sun as Olivia approached. 2 days had passed since their meeting with Patricia, days spent in careful preparation and intelligence gathering. The security detail Jack had arranged Michael Torres, a former FBI agent who specialized in financial crimes, and his team maintained a discreet perimeter as Olivia entered the gleaming lobby. Dressed in a simple but elegant black sheath dress, her hair pulled back in a sleek chignon, she projected confident purpose as she approached the concierge desk. Good afternoon. I'm here to see Maxwell Richardson, Penthouse 7. The young man consulted his screen. Your name, ma'am. Olivia Richardson, his wife. A flicker of uncertainty crossed the concierge's face. One moment, please. He made a brief call, speaking too quietly for Olivia to hear, then returned with a professional smile. Ms. Winters says they're expecting you. Mrs. Richardson, please take the private elevator to the right. You'll need this key card. The elevator whisked her to the 70th floor in smooth silence, giving Olivia a moment to center herself. In her earpiece, Michael's voice provided reassurance. We've got eyes on all exits. Security team is positioned. You're good to go. The doors opened directly into a spectacular foyer, revealing a penthouse that embodied Maxwell's aesthetic minimalist luxury with panoramic views of the Hudson River and Manhattan skyline. Rachel stood waiting, her expression a mixture of wariness and forced politeness. Olivia, this is unexpected? Is it? Olivia stepped into the space, noting the moving boxes still stacked along one wall. I believe proper etiquette suggests inviting the person who paid for your new home to the housewarming. Rachel's composure faltered slightly. Maxwell isn't here right now. He had a business meeting. How convenient. Olivia moved further into the apartment, taking in the exquisite furnishings, many of which she recognized from their Southampton house. I see you've helped yourself to more than just my husband and bank accounts. Look, I know this is difficult. Spare me the sympathy act. Rachel, we both know exactly what you are. Olivia turned to face her directly. What I'm curious about is whether you know exactly what Maxwell is. Beyond the obvious. I mean, something in her tone must have registered because Rachel's expression shifted from defensive to uncertain. What are you talking about? The Vitelli family, the money laundering, the fact that the penthouse you're so proudly showing off on Instagram was purchased with funds stolen from both me and some very dangerous people who don't appreciate being crossed. The color drained from Rachel's face. You're lying. Max would never. Am I? Olivia removed a folded document from her purse, a copy of a wire transfer showing funds moving from one of Maxwell's shell companies to the Edison's developer. This is just the tip of the iceberg. Rachel, when the FBI Financial Crimes Unit finishes connecting the dots Maxwell has so helpfully provided, everyone associated with him will be under investigation, including his Instagram happy girlfriend. Rachel sank onto a nearby sofa, her carefully constructed facade crumbling. I didn't know. I swear, I just thought that he was leaving his wife for true love, Olivia supplied, her tone gentler now. He's a con man, Rachel. He's been running games his entire adult life. I was just his longest running mark. The elevator doors opened again, and Maxwell stepped into the foyer, stopping abruptly at the sight of Olivia. For a fraction of a second, genuine shock registered on his face before his practiced mask of control slid back into place. Olivia, making house calls now. Consider it a courtesy visit, she replied calmly. I thought you should know about the emergency motions filed this morning. Your accounts are frozen. Maxwell, all of them, including the offshore ones. He laughed, though it didn't reach his eyes. You're bluffing. You don't have that kind of reach. I don't, Olivia agreed. But the Federal Reserve's Financial Crimes Enforcement Network does. Turns out, my father kept very detailed records of your activities. Maxwell, records I've now shared with the appropriate authorities. The facade cracked slightly. Howard knew nothing about my business. Howard knew everything, Olivia corrected. Every shell company, every fraudulent transfer, every connection to the Vitelli family. He just waited to see if you'd actually go through with betraying me before he deployed the evidence. Maxwell's gaze darted to Rachel, who sat pale and silent on the sofa, then back to Olivia. His calculation was visible, assessing threats, weighing options, planning his next move. Whatever Howard thought he knew was speculation, he said finally, moving toward the bar and pouring himself a scotch with steady hands. Unsubstantiated theories from a man who never understood modern finance. Is that what you told Victor Vitelli, that his $30 million was lost due to a misunderstanding of modern finance? Olivia watched as Maxwell's hand froze momentarily on the decanter. Yes, I know about that too. The FBI is particularly interested in those transactions. You have no idea what you're involving yourself in, Maxwell said, his voice dropping to a dangerous register. These aren't people you want to cross. Olivia? I'm not crossing anyone. You did that when you stole their money along with mine. She maintained steady eye contact, refusing to be intimidated. But here's what's going to happen now. You're going to sign the revised divorce agreement my attorney has prepared, acknowledging your financial misconduct and surrendering any claim to marital assets. Maxwell's laugh was genuine this time, if bitter. Or what you'll tell the Vitellis where to find me. I'm already one step ahead of you there. No, Maxwell, I'm not you. Olivia moved toward the elevator. I don't need threats. The law is on my side now, both divorce law and criminal law. You've left a trail of evidence so comprehensive that my attorney called it a gift to the prosecution. As if on cue, the elevator doors opened again, revealing Patricia Lynn and a court officer holding official documents. Maxwell Richardson, the officer asked formally. You've been served with emergency motions regarding the dissolution of your marriage and the freezing of assets pending investigation of financial improprieties. Maxwell made no move to take the papers, so the officer placed them on the console table beside him and retreated to the elevator. You have 72 hours to respond, Mr. Richardson, Patricia informed him coolly. Though given the FBI's interest in your activities, you might have more pressing concerns by then. Olivia stepped into the elevator beside Patricia, turning to face Maxwell one last time. Oh, and one more thing. The penthouse. It's not yours. The building is owned by Harrington Properties, my father's company. Your purchase application has been officially rejected by the board. You have 48 hours to vacate. As the doors closed on Maxwell's stunned expression, Olivia felt a weight lift from her shoulders, not complete liberation, but the first true breath after years of slow suffocation. Round one to us, Patricia murmured beside her. What happens now? Olivia asked as the elevator descended. Now, Patricia replied with grim satisfaction, we prepare for his counter move. Men like Maxwell Richardson don't surrender easily, especially when cornered. Outside the building, Michael Torres waited with the security team, scanning the street with professional vigilance. All clear for now, he reported as they escorted Olivia to the waiting car. But we should move quickly. If Richardson has connections to the Vitellis, they may already be watching. As the car pulled away from the curb, Olivia caught a glimpse of Maxwell on the penthouse balcony, phone pressed to his ear, his expression thunderous even from 70 stories below. He was already making calls, already planning his next move. Jack was right, she said quietly, more to herself than to Patricia beside her. This is just the beginning. The car turned north toward the sanctuary of Howard's Upper East Side apartment, her new temporary home, as Olivia mentally prepared for the battle ahead. Maxwell had taught her many lessons during their marriage, most of them painful, but perhaps the most valuable was one he never intended: how to recognize a predator behind a perfect smile. And now, finally, she was ready to fight back. The Harrington family apartment on Fifth Avenue embodied old New York elegance: 12 rooms of pre-war architectural details and Central Park views, maintained in pristine condition since Howard's passing. For Olivia, it represented both sanctuary and strategy. The building's formidable security system and discreet staff provided protection, while its prestigious address sent a clear message to Maxwell: she was no longer isolated or vulnerable. 3 days had passed since the confrontation at the Edison. 3 days of careful preparation, guided by Patricia Lynn's meticulous strategy and Jack's security protocols. Michael Torres and his team maintained a constant presence, monitoring the building and accompanying Olivia on her necessary outings. The FBI has officially opened an investigation, Jack announced, entering the library where Olivia sat reviewing financial documents with Patricia. My contact at the Bureau confirmed they're focusing on money laundering and wire fraud connected to the Vitelli accounts. Has Maxwell been questioned yet? Olivia asked, looking up from the spreadsheets. Not formally. They're building their case before approaching him directly. Jack hesitated. There's something else. Maxwell closed on a property in St. Bart's yesterday remotely, through a shell corporation. He's preparing an exit strategy. Patricia's expression darkened. That violates the court order freezing marital assets. He used Vitelli money, Jack clarified. Accounts our emergency motions couldn't reach. Can we alert the authorities? Olivia asked. Already done, Jack assured her. The FBI has flagged his passport. If he tries to leave the country, he'll be detained. Olivia nodded, absorbing this information with newfound clarity. The past days had brought a strange liberation, the fog of denial lifting to reveal not just Maxwell's betrayal, but her own complicity in maintaining their facade of a marriage. Each document she reviewed, each account statement she analyzed, revealed another layer of deception she had willfully ignored for years. Mrs. Richardson, Patricia said, interrupting her thoughts, you should prepare yourself. When cornered, men like your husband typically employ one of two strategies. They either attack directly or attempt to negotiate from a position of false strength. Maxwell doesn't negotiate, Olivia replied with certainty. He dictates terms and expects compliance. Then we should anticipate an attack, Patricia concluded, likely directed at your credibility, your financial acumen, perhaps even your mental stability. As if summoned by their discussion, Olivia's phone chimed with an incoming email. The sender, Maxwell Richardson. It's begun, she said, opening the message and scanning its contents. He's offering a generous reconsideration of the divorce terms. $5 million settlement if I withdraw the emergency motions and sign a non-disclosure agreement regarding his business practices. Patricia scoffed. Desperation dressed as magnanimity. He's trying to buy your silence before the FBI closes in. There's more, Olivia continued reading. He claims he can make the Vitelli situation disappear if I cooperate. Says it's in my best interest to avoid unnecessary entanglements with certain parties. Jack and Patricia exchanged glances. That's a threat, Jack said flatly. He's implying the Vitellis will come after you if his arrangement with them is exposed. Forward that to me immediately, Patricia instructed, already reaching for her phone. Threatening a spouse during divorce proceedings is taken very seriously by the courts. This only strengthens our case. As Olivia complied, a notification appeared on her laptop, an alert from one of the banking apps Jack had installed to monitor activity on her accounts. Someone was attempting to access her personal checking account using her credentials. Jack, she called, turning the screen. Someone's trying to hack my account. Her uncle moved swiftly to examine the alert. IP address traces to the Caribbean, St. Martin. He looked up grimly. Maxwell's laying groundwork. If he can access your accounts, he could potentially transfer funds in your name, creating a narrative that you were involved in his schemes all along. Can he get in? Olivia asked, anxiety rising. Not with the security measures we've implemented, Jack assured her. But the attempt itself is telling. He's getting desperate. The phone on the library desk rang the building's secure line rather than their cell phones. Jack answered, listened briefly, then covered the mouthpiece. Security desk. Rachel Winters is downstairs, asking to see you. Says it's urgent. Olivia hesitated. Considering the possibilities, Rachel could be Maxwell's proxy, sent to manipulate or threaten, or she could be genuinely frightened, perhaps even valuable as a witness to Maxwell's activities. Have her screened for weapons or recording devices, she decided. Then send her up, but I want Michael in the room. 15 minutes later, a visibly shaken Rachel Winters sat perched on the edge of an antique settee in the Harrington Library. Gone was the polished confidence of Maxwell's executive assistant, replaced by nervous tension as she glanced repeatedly toward the windows as if expecting to see someone watching. Thank you for seeing me, she began, her voice barely above a whisper. I didn't know where else to go. Why are you here, Rachel? Olivia asked directly, maintaining emotional distance. Maxwell's gone. Rachel twisted the strap of her designer handbag. He cleared out of the penthouse last night, took everything valuable, said he was going to his club for a meeting, but he never came back. And you're surprised, Patricia interjected coolly. That's his pattern. Isn't it disappear when things get complicated? Rachel flinched. It's not just that. Before he left, he was on the phone arguing with someone named Victor. The conversation was frightening. When I asked who Victor was, Max slapped me. Her hand unconsciously moved to her cheek. He's never been violent before. Michael Torres, positioned by the door, exchanged glances with Jack. The threat level had just escalated significantly. Did Maxwell mention where he might be going? Jack asked. Any plans, contacts, safe houses? Rachel shook her head. Nothing specific, but he did say something about Howard's collection being the key to fixing everything, that if he could just find it, he could pay them off and disappear. Olivia stiffened. My father's art collection. I think so. He was obsessed with finding some list or inventory. Rachel hesitated. There's something else. I found this in his briefcase. She removed a folded document from her purse, handing it to Olivia with trembling fingers. It's a contract, with my name on it. I never signed this. Olivia scanned the document, her blood running cold. It was a power of attorney, purportedly granting Maxwell complete control over Rachel's financial affairs, backdated 3 years. The signature was a reasonable approximation of Rachel's, but clearly forged. He was setting you up, Olivia said, passing the document to Patricia, creating a paper trail to make you complicit in his schemes if things went wrong. Just like he tried to do with you, Rachel whispered, tears welling. I've been such a fool, despite everything. Olivia felt a flicker of sympathy. Rachel was younger, more naive, easily manipulated by a man who had perfected his techniques over decades. She had been another of Maxwell's victims, not his co-conspirator. What do you want from us, Ms. Winters? Patricia asked, her tone marginally softer. Protection, Rachel replied immediately, and a chance to make this right. I can tell you everything I know about Maxwell's business dealings, his contacts, his plans. I was his executive assistant for 4 years. I handled his correspondence, arranged his meetings, maintained his files. I know things even his partners at the firm don't know. Jack leaned forward. Including his dealings with the Vitelli family? Rachel nodded, wiping away tears. Victor Vitelli was never in the official client database, but Maxwell met with him regularly. I coordinated those meetings, arranged the secure conference rooms, processed the paperwork through separate channels. Why come forward now? Olivia asked, still wary. Why not when you first realized what he was doing? Because I was in love with him, Rachel admitted, her voice breaking, or thought I was, and because I was afraid. The Vitellis aren't people you cross casually. She looked directly at Olivia. But after seeing that forged power of attorney, I realized Maxwell would sacrifice me in a heartbeat to save himself, just like he tried to do with you. Patricia and Jack exchanged meaningful glances before Patricia spoke. Ms. Winters, if you're willing to provide a formal statement about Mr. Richardson's activities, particularly regarding the Vitelli connection, it could be extremely valuable to both the divorce proceedings and the federal investigation. I'll do whatever it takes, Rachel agreed immediately. But I need assurance of protection. Maxwell knows where I live, has access to my accounts. Could be watching me right now. We can arrange secure accommodation, Michael offered from his position by the door, and coordinate with the FBI regarding witness protection if necessary. Olivia made a sudden decision. She can stay here tonight. We have the guest suite, and the building security is excellent. When Jack began to protest, she held up a hand. If Maxwell is looking for my father's art collection, we need to know exactly what he knows and what he's after. Rachel is our best source of that information. It's your call, Jack conceded reluctantly. But we double the security detail, and Ms. Winters doesn't leave the apartment without an escort. As Rachel was shown to the guest suite, Olivia turned to Patricia. What's Maxwell's endgame here? Why is he suddenly fixated on Dad's art collection? Money, Patricia replied simply. The Vitellis want their investment back, likely with substantial interest. Your father's collection is worth millions, easily transportable, and can be sold on the black market without extensive documentation. But Maxwell doesn't have access to the collection, Olivia pointed out. It's in secure storage, part of my trust. He may not know that, Jack suggested, or he may be hoping to leverage your father's inventory documentation to create forgeries, establish false provenance. The art world is notoriously vulnerable to sophisticated fraud. Olivia moved to the window, gazing out at Central Park as twilight descended. The familiar vista her father had loved, the view he pointed to when teaching her about legacy and responsibility. Howard always said art was more than investment, she murmured. It was history, culture, something to be protected rather than exploited. Jack joined her at the window. He believed the same about family. I know. Olivia turned back to face the room with newfound resolve, which is why we're going to use Maxwell's fixation on the collection to our advantage. If he wants Howard's inventory so badly, let's make sure he finds it on our terms. The Harrington Beach House in Southampton stood sentinel against the Atlantic, its weathered shingles and commanding position a testament to old money discretion rather than nouveau riche ostentation. Olivia had always loved this place, despite Maxwell's constant pressure to sell it for something more contemporary. Now, as dawn broke over the ocean, she walked the perimeter with Michael, reviewing the security setup his team had established overnight. Motion sensors covering all approaches, he explained, pointing to discrete devices positioned among the dunes, cameras with night vision capability, reinforced doors and windows, secure communications linked directly to local police. And the art, Olivia asked, turning to observe the trucks being unloaded at the rear of the property. Arriving now, replicas of your father's most valuable pieces, created by the forgery expert the FBI uses for training, good enough to fool anyone except an expert with specialized equipment. Michael checked his watch. The real collection remains in secure storage in Manhattan. The plan had come together with remarkable speed after Rachel's revelations. Maxwell's obsession with Howard's art collection specifically, the detailed inventory documenting provenance, value, and storage locations provided an opportunity to set a trap. According to Rachel, Maxwell had already contacted black market buyers for several specific pieces, promising delivery within days. The FBI team is in position, Olivia confirmed, watching as workers carried crated artwork into the house. 2 agents posing as caretakers will remain on site. Surveillance teams are established at 3 locations with clear views of the property. Maritime patrol is on standby in case he attempts approach by water. Michael's military background was evident in his precise planning. Jack and I will be in the security booth in the guest house, monitoring everything. Olivia nodded, a strange calm settling over her. After days of reactive defense, they were finally taking proactive measures, controlling the battlefield rather than responding to Maxwell's moves. The inventory documentation is in place, she asked, in the library safe, exactly where Rachel indicated Maxwell would expect to find it. The documents appear authentic, but contain subtle tracking elements, watermarked paper, RFID chips embedded in the binding, GPS trackers in the storage tube. If he takes them, we'll know exactly where they go. The final preparations continued throughout the morning security systems tested, communication protocols established, scenarios rehearsed. By mid-afternoon, the stage was set. The Southampton house appeared occupied but minimally staffed, a tempting target for someone desperate enough to risk breaking in. It's time, Jack announced, checking the encrypted message on his phone. Rachel just confirmed she accidentally mentioned to a mutual contact that you're spending the weekend at Southampton to inventory the art collection before it's moved to a new storage facility on Monday. How long do you think before Maxwell makes his move? Olivia asked, gathering her overnight bag. If he's as desperate as Rachel indicates, tonight or tomorrow at the latest. Jack escorted her to the waiting car. The Vitellis aren't known for their patience, and international flights are being monitored. He needs those paintings or their documentation to negotiate his exit. As Olivia settled into the back seat, Michael handed her a small device. Emergency beacon. Keep it with you at all times. One press sends an immediate alert to all security personnel. I'll be fine, she assured him, though she pocketed the device carefully. The Waldorf is hardly a danger zone. The decoy strategy had been Patricia's suggestion. Olivia would check into the Waldorf Astoria under her own name, maintaining a visible presence in Manhattan while the trap was set in Southampton. If Maxwell had people watching her, they would report her location in the city, potentially making him less cautious about approaching the beach house. Remember, Jack said through the open car window, no unnecessary risks. Let the professionals handle the apprehension. Your job is to stay safe and visible. Olivia nodded, though a part of her, the part that had endured years of subtle diminishment and control, longed for direct confrontation. To face Maxwell not as the compliant wife he had molded, but as the formidable adversary he had created through his betrayal. That opportunity would come, she reminded herself as the car pulled away, but on her terms, not his. The Waldorf Astoria suite offered panoramic views of Manhattan's evening skyline, lights twinkling like earthbound stars as darkness descended. Olivia moved through her evening routine with deliberate visibility dinner in the hotel restaurant, a brief appearance at the lobby bar, a careful social media post tagged with her location. By 11, she was back in her suite, the Do Not Disturb sign deployed as she changed into more practical clothing, dark jeans, a black turtleneck, flat-soled boots. The transformation from socialite to operative was both physical and psychological, shedding the performative femininity Maxwell had always insisted upon. Her phone buzzed with an encrypted message from Jack. Movement detected on perimeter cameras. 2 individuals approaching from the beach side. ETA to breach approximately 20 minutes. Olivia's pulse quickened. The trap was working. Maxwell or his proxies had taken the bait. She responded with a simple acknowledgement, then moved to the suite's closet where her overnight bag contained one crucial item not disclosed to Jack or Michael car keys to Howard's vintage Jaguar, stored in the Waldorf's private garage for VIP guests. Jack's instruction echoed in her mind no unnecessary risks. But this wasn't unnecessary, she reasoned. This was essential not just for legal resolution, but for personal reckoning. After 18 years of manipulation and betrayal, she needed to confront Maxwell directly, to reclaim her agency in the narrative he had constructed around their marriage. Slipping out of the suite, Olivia took the service elevator to the garage level, avoiding the main lobby where Michael's team would have someone watching. The midnight blue Jaguar waited in its reserved space, a vehicle chosen specifically because it wouldn't be associated with her in any surveillance. The drive to Southampton took just under 2 hours, the late-night highways relatively empty as she pushed the powerful car to its limits. Her phone remained silent. She disabled location services before leaving, knowing Jack would be focused on the developing situation at the beach house rather than monitoring her movements in Manhattan. As she approached the coastal community, Olivia cut the headlights, navigating the familiar roads by moonlight until she reached the private lane leading to neighboring property. Howard had purchased the adjacent 5 acres years ago as a buffer against development, maintaining it as natural dunes and woodland. From there, a hidden path led directly to the beach house's eastern approach, knowledge only family members possessed. The night air carried the scent of salt and pine as Olivia made her way silently through the dunes, keeping low and moving with purpose. Ahead, the beach house loomed against the starlit sky, its windows dark except for the faint glow of security lighting at the rear entrance. From her position among the beach grass, Olivia spotted the surveillance team Jack had mentioned, 2 figures in dark clothing positioned near the boathouse, their attention focused on the main structure. FBI agents, she presumed, waiting for their target to emerge with stolen art or documentation. Moving parallel to the shoreline, Olivia approached from the blind spot behind the old greenhouse, a route she had played along as a child during elaborate games of hide-and-seek with Diane. The security system would register her presence, but her access code would identify her as authorized, preventing any alarms. At the greenhouse door, she entered the family code, then made her way through the connecting underground passage Howard had installed during Cold War paranoia, a tunnel linking the outbuildings to the main house. The passage emerged in what had once been a root cellar, now converted to a wine room adjacent to the kitchen. Voices drifted from above, hushed, urgent, masculine, not from the library where the safe was located, but from Howard's study on the second floor. Olivia moved silently up the back staircase, years of familiarity with the house's quirks, allowing her to avoid the third step that always creaked under pressure. Not here, A voice hissed unfamiliar, heavily accented. You said documentation would be in safe. It has to be somewhere. Maxwell's unmistakable tenor, strained with desperation. Richardson wouldn't have moved it without updating the inventory. Keep looking. Olivia paused at the top of the stairs, her heart pounding but her mind clear. Maxwell wasn't alone, and his companion sounded distinctly dangerous. The wise move would be to retreat, alert Jack's team, let the professionals handle the confrontation. But 18 years of surrendered autonomy propelled her forward instead. Reaching into her pocket, she activated the emergency beacon Michael had given her compromise between caution and confrontation. Help would come, but she would face Maxwell on her own terms first. The study door stood ajar, golden lamplight spilling into the darkened hallway. Through the gap, Olivia could see Maxwell frantically rifling through Howard's desk drawers, while a stockier man with close-cropped dark hair examined the bookshelves. Victor is losing patience, the stranger said, his accent Eastern European. 3 days you promise payment, 3 days nothing. I told you, once I have the inventory, we can access the collection. Maxwell's voice carried the forced confidence Olivia recognized from countless social situations when he was bluffing. These paintings are worth 10 times what I owe Victor. Is not about worth, the man countered. Is about trust. You broke trust. Now you fix, or Victor fixes you. Permanently. The threat hung in the air between them, its implication clear even to Olivia in the hallway. Maxwell's desperation suddenly made perfect sense. He wasn't just running from legal consequences, but from something far more immediate and deadly. Taking a deep breath, Olivia pushed the door open fully, stepping into the light. The inventory isn't in the desk. Maxwell. It never was. Both men whirled toward her, shock evident on their faces. Maxwell recovered first, his expression cycling rapidly from surprise to calculation to a simulation of relief. Olivia! Thank God you're here. He moved toward her, arms outstretched as if for an embrace. There's been a terrible misunderstanding. This gentleman is here to collect the money you stole from the Vitelli family. She finished for him, maintaining her distance, after you used it to finance your escape with Rachel. Maxwell's facade cracked slightly, desperation bleeding through. You don't understand the situation. These people, he gestured toward the stocky man, they don't negotiate. They don't care about legal proceedings or divorce settlements. If I don't deliver what I promised, they'll kill me. That sounds like a personal problem, Olivia replied coolly. One created entirely by your own choices. The stranger moved forward, his attention now fully on Olivia. You are wife. You know where paintings are. I know exactly where they are, she confirmed, safely stored where neither of you can access them. Olivia, please. Maxwell's voice took on the cajoling tone he'd always used when manipulating her in the past. Whatever issues are between us, you don't want my death on your conscience. Help me this one last time, and I'll disappear forever. You'll never have to see me again. Tempting, she acknowledged, but I have a better proposal. She turned to the stranger. Your name is Yuri, correct, Victor Vitelli's collection manager? The man's eyes narrowed suspiciously. How you know this? My father kept extensive records about everyone Maxwell did business with, including the Vitelli family's art acquisition practices. Olivia maintained steady eye contact, projecting a confidence she only partially felt. I have a proposition for Mr. Vitelli, one that resolves his financial issue without unnecessary violence. Olivia, don't, Maxwell began, but fell silent when Yuri raised a hand. What proposition? The money Maxwell stole, approximately $30 million. Correct, I can replace it. Completely, with interest, by tomorrow morning. In exchange, the Vitelli family considers the matter closed and leaves Maxwell to face legal consequences rather than personal retribution. Yuri studied her with newfound interest. Why would you do this? He betray you, steal from you, run away with a young woman. Because I'm not like him, Olivia replied simply. And because $30 million is a small price to end this cleanly and finally, you don't have that kind of liquid capital, Maxwell interjected, desperation evident. The trust distributions are scheduled, monitored. Shows how little you know about my father's arrangements. Olivia cut him off. Or about me. A commotion from downstairs interrupted the standoff-heavy footsteps, shouted commands, the unmistakable sound of an FBI operation in progress. Jack must have responded to her emergency beacon. FBI hands where we can see them. The command echoed up the stairwell as agents swarmed into the house. Yuri's hand moved toward his jacket, but Olivia stepped forward quickly. Don't. That's a death sentence, and you know it. Tell Victor I'll contact him tomorrow through his gallery representative with the financial resolution. No one needs to die tonight. For a tense moment, the outcome balanced on a knife's edge. Then Yuri nodded almost imperceptibly, moving his hands away from his body in a gesture of compliance just as the first agents reached the study doorway, weapons drawn. On the ground now, the lead agent shouted, training his weapon on Yuri while his partner covered Maxwell. As both men were forced to their knees and handcuffed, Jack appeared in the doorway, his expression a mixture of relief and fury when he spotted Olivia. "What the hell were you thinking?" he demanded, crossing the room in 3 quick strides. "You were supposed to be at the Waldorf?" "I was thinking I needed to finish this myself," Olivia replied calmly. "And I was right. Maxwell wasn't just after the art, he's running from the Vitellis. They want their money back." Jack's gaze shifted to Yuri, understanding dawning. "Vitelli enforcer? Collection manager," Olivia corrected. "But yes, essentially." As the FBI agents let Maxwell and Yuri from the room, Maxwell twisted toward Olivia, his handsome features contorted with a mixture of rage and pleading. "You can't let them take me," he hissed. "The Vitellis have people everywhere, prison, police, even the FBI. I'm dead the moment I'm in the system." For the first time in their relationship, Olivia saw Maxwell stripped of all pretense, the charming facade, the confident financial wizard, the attentive husband. What remained was merely a frightened man who had finally encountered consequences he couldn't manipulate his way out of. "You should have thought of that before stealing from organized crime," she replied without sympathy. "Your survival instincts were always impressive. Maxwell, I'm sure you'll figure something out." As he was led away, still protesting, Jack turned to Olivia with grudging admiration. "That was either the bravest or stupidest thing I've ever witnessed. Probably both." "It was necessary," she said simply. "For me, if not for the case," Jack sighed, recognizing the determination in her expression, the same look Howard had worn when making difficult but principled decisions. "Your father would have done the same damn thing. You know, walked right into danger if he thought it was the right call." "I know." Olivia moved to Howard's desk, running her fingers along the polished mahogany. "That's why he prepared so thoroughly for this moment. He knew someday I'd need to stand on my own." "Standing on your own doesn't mean standing alone," Jack reminded her. "That's what family is for." Outside, the first hints of dawn lightened the eastern sky as FBI vehicles departed with their prisoners. The trap had worked, though not exactly as planned. Maxwell and his Vitelli connection were in custody. The financial crimes investigation now expanded to include organized crime elements. But as Olivia stood in her father's study, watching the sunrise over the Atlantic, she knew the legal resolution was only part of her journey. The deeper work reclaiming her identity, rebuilding her confidence, redefining her future was just beginning. "Let's go home," she said finally, turning to Jack. "There's still a lot to do." The weeks following Maxwell's arrest unfolded with surprising speed. The FBI investigation, bolstered by Rachel's comprehensive testimony and the evidence from Howard's files, expanded to include multiple charges: wire fraud, money laundering, conspiracy, tax evasion, and racketeering through connection with organized crime. Maxwell, facing decades in federal prison and with no leverage remaining, accepted a plea deal: 15 years with possibility of parole after 10 in exchange for cooperation against the Vitelli network. As part of the agreement, he surrendered all claims to marital property and acknowledged his financial misconduct in the divorce proceedings. "It's done," Patricia announced, entering Olivia's apartment with uncharacteristic informality. "The judge signed the final decree this morning. You are officially Olivia Harrington again." "That was fast," Olivia commented, accepting the document Patricia handed her. "Fastest high net worth divorce I've handled in 30 years of practice." Patricia agreed with satisfaction. When the husband is facing federal prison and has systematically defrauded not only his wife, but organized crime figures, the court tends to expedite matters. Diane raised her coffee mug in a toast. "To Justice Swift for once. And to new beginnings," Jack added from his position by the window. Olivia studied the decree, the legal language formally dissolving 18 years of marriage in clinical terms. The document should have felt momentous, but instead, it seemed almost anticlimactic, the legal system finally catching up to an emotional reality she had already processed. "There is one remaining matter," Patricia said, retrieving another document from her briefcase. "Maxwell has requested a meeting with you. His attorney submitted the formal request yesterday." Olivia looked up sharply. "Why would he want to see me now?" The stated reason is to personally apologize and provide closure, Patricia replied, her tone making it clear she found this dubious. But given his history of manipulation, I strongly advise against it. So do I, Jack interjected firmly. Nothing good can come from further contact. Olivia considered the request, turning it over in her mind. After weeks of legal proceedings, financial forensics, and security precautions, the thought of facing Maxwell directly held a certain appeal not for reconciliation or understanding, but for the clear-eyed acknowledgement of what had been real and what had been illusion in their years together. I'll see him, she decided. But on my terms, no attorneys present, just us. Patricia began to protest, but Olivia raised a hand. I know the risks, but this isn't about legal strategy anymore. It's about closing a chapter properly so I can begin the next one. 3 days later, Olivia sat in a private conference room at the Federal Detention Center, waiting for Maxwell to be brought in. She had dressed with deliberate care, a simple tailored suit in deep burgundy, minimal jewelry, hair styled in a modern bob she debuted the previous week, nothing reminiscent of the carefully curated Maxwell's wife aesthetic he had preferred. When the door opened and he entered, the contrast was stark. Gone were the bespoke suits and Italian leather shoes, replaced by standard-issue prison attire. Without his carefully constructed trappings, Maxwell appeared diminished, still handsome at 48, but ordinary in a way she had never seen him. Olivia, he said, taking the seat across from her. Thank you for coming. She studied him silently, noting the shadows beneath his eyes, the tension in his jaw. He appeared to have aged years in a single month. Your attorney said you had something important to tell me, she replied, keeping her voice neutral. I'm listening. Maxwell's hands rested on the table between them, fingers interlaced to hide their slight tremor. I wanted to tell you that I've signed everything, the divorce papers, the property settlements, all of it. You won't have to fight me for anything. I know. Patricia informed me of your plea deal. It's not just about the plea, he said, a hint of his old impatience surfacing. I wanted you to hear directly from me. I'm not contesting anything. What was ours is yours now. Olivia regarded him steadily. Nothing was ever truly ours. Maxwell, you made that clear when you emptied our accounts. He looked away, unable to maintain eye contact. I panicked. Things were collapsing faster than I could fix them. Rachel was a distraction, a fantasy of starting over. With my money, Olivia added quietly. Yes, the admission seemed to cost him something. With your money. With Howard's money. A silence stretched between them, not the comfortable silence of long companionship, but the weighted pause of two people who had shared a life, yet somehow remained strangers. Why did you want to see me? Olivia asked finally. Not to apologize, certainly. His laugh was hollow, entirely without humor. Would you believe an apology if I offered one? After everything? No. Then let's not insult each other with pretense. He leaned forward slightly. I wanted to see you because you're the only person who knew me before all this, before I became this. He gestured vaguely at himself, at the institutional surroundings. I never knew you, Olivia countered. Not really. My father saw the truth from the beginning, but I refused to see it. Maxwell's expression tightened at the mention of her father. Howard was a perceptive man. I underestimated him significantly. You underestimated me as well. Yes, he acknowledged, surprising her with his candor. That was perhaps my greatest miscalculation. The admission hung in the air between them. Olivia waited, sensing there was more he wanted to say. They're investigating Rachel, he said finally, for potential involvement in the fraud. Olivia raised an eyebrow. Was she involved? No. She was exactly what she appeared to be, an ambitious young woman dazzled by wealth and status. She had no idea where the money came from. Just like me, Olivia observed. No, Maxwell said sharply. Nothing like you. You chose not to see because you loved me. She chose not to see because she loved what I could give her. The distinction seemed important to him, though it made little difference to Olivia now. Whether blind from love or ambition, the result had been the same willing participation in an elaborate illusion. I told the prosecutor she wasn't involved, he continued. It's the one true thing I can offer at this point to prevent someone else from being punished for my actions. Olivia studied him, wondering if this belated attack of conscience was genuine or simply another calculated move. With Maxwell, it was impossible to be certain. Is that all? She asked, gathering her purse. She had heard enough. He hesitated, then reached into the pocket of his jumpsuit and withdrew a small folded paper. One more thing. I found this in my personal effects when they were cataloging everything for asset forfeiture. I thought you might want it back. He slid the paper across the table. Olivia unfolded it carefully to reveal a photograph, faded and creased with age. It showed a much younger version of herself, standing proudly in front of a Victorian building. Architectural plans rolled under her arm, face alight with purpose and passion, her first preservation project during graduate school. You kept this? She asked, genuinely surprised. It was in my wallet, Maxwell admitted. All these years, I'm not sure why. Olivia tucked the photograph into her purse. This small artifact from a life interrupted. Goodbye, Maxwell. Olivia. He spoke her name like a complete sentence, finality in each syllable. She didn't look back as she left the room, the heavy door closing behind her with decisive finality. 6 months later, Olivia stood in the center of her renovated apartment on Fifth Avenue, morning light streaming through restored leaded glass windows. The space had been transformed, original architectural details preserved and highlighted, modernized where necessary, but with respect for the building's heritage and character. Like me, she thought with a small smile. The divorce had been finalized with unprecedented speed, given Maxwell's comprehensive surrender of all claims. The media interest had gradually faded as new financial scandals took center stage. The FBI protection detail had been withdrawn once the last of Maxwell's associates was apprehended. Life had acquired new rhythms, new purposes. Her position on the New York Preservation Foundation board had expanded to include oversight of a special fund for emergency acquisition of threatened historic properties. She had reconnected with colleagues from her brief professional life before Maxwell, finding mentors and friends eager to welcome her back to the preservation community. Most importantly, she had rediscovered the woman glimpsed in that faded photograph, not unchanged by experience, but fundamentally intact beneath the layers of compromise and accommodation. The doorbell rang, interrupting these reflections. It was Diane arriving for the small housewarming gathering Olivia had planned to celebrate the completed renovations. It's magnificent, Diane declared, turning slowly to take in the space. Like stepping back in time, but in the best possible way. That's the goal of good preservation, Olivia replied, leading her toward the terrace where drinks were arranged. Honoring the past while creating something that functions for the present, Jack arrived next, followed by Patricia Lynn and several colleagues from the Preservation Foundation. As conversation flowed and laughter filled the rooms, Howard had left her rooms Maxwell had dismissed as outdated and impractical. Olivia felt a profound sense of rightness, of return. Later, as sunset painted the sky in spectacular oranges and pinks beyond her terrace, Jack raised his glass in a quiet toast. To Howard, he said simply, who saw further than any of us. To Dad, Olivia agreed, thinking of the father whose protection had extended beyond death, whose faith in her had never wavered, even when her faith in herself had faltered. And silently, she added another toast to Olivia Harrington, who had been lost but was now found, who had endured betrayal but refused to be defined by it, who had discovered in the ruins of one life the foundation for another far more authentic and purposeful. The inheritance Howard had left wasn't just the money that secured her future, it was the example of integrity that would guide it. As twilight deepened into evening, Olivia moved through her guests with a quiet confidence that came not from wealth or status, but from hard-won self-knowledge. At 46, she stood at a threshold rather than an ending, older and wiser, certainly, but also more alive to possibility than she had been in decades. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, the Foundation's campaign to save a threatened Art Deco theater in Brooklyn, Diane's concerns about their mother's advancing Alzheimer's, the memoir she had begun writing about financial coercion in high-net-worth marriages. But tonight, in this moment, surrounded by people who saw her clearly and valued her authenticity, Olivia Harrington was exactly where she belonged, no longer diminished by another's shadow, but standing fully in her own light.